Hello, and welcome to another episode of Breadcast Anime Talk. I am back to talk about more Digimon, and this is going to talk about the anime series and said series' accompanying movie. The series I'm going to be talking about is Digimon Frontier, and the movie I will talk about is Digimon Frontier Island of Lost Digimon. Unlike my video on Digimon Tamers, I will be talking about the Digimon Frontier anime series in this video and the movie in a separate video. So let's get right into this. So let's begin with our cast of human characters. We have Takuya, Zoe, Koji, Koichi, Tommy, and JP. Takuya is the typical Digimon anime leader guy since he is the one with the goggles. Here's the thing, Digimon Frontier is very different anime when coming from something like Digimon Adventure and Digimon Digimon Tamers. And in my opinion, Digimon Frontier really isn't as good as the aforementioned Digimon anime that came before it. The first thing is that the idea of partner Digimon gets thrown out the window, and instead they make the human characters be Digimon. They do this by way of spirit evolution at first, their human spirit. Then, after a while, they each get beast spirits, which allows them to do a thing called slide evolution. It lets them switch between their normal human spirits and their beast spirit forms. But things get kind of dumb when they decide to introduce fusion evolution, in which it takes the human spirit form and the beast spirit form and mashes them together. These are some of the laziest looking Digivolutions I have ever seen. For example, Takuya's fusion form of Aldamon, which really just looks like all of Agunimon, plus the torso, wings, and weapons from Burning Greymon, and it looks really fucking lazy. Then there's the names that they use for some of the forms in the English dub of this anime. As mentioned, Takuya's beast form is named Burning Greymon. JP's beast spirit form is named Metal Kabuterimon. Koji's beast spirit form is named Kendo Garurumon. Why is it that the English dub of the anime they chose the names for these three spirit beast forms to have parts borrowed from Digimon Adventure, when they don't even have any physical resemblance to them? Metal Kabuterimon may look like an insect, but is nothing like actual Kabuterimon, so why did it name it that way in the English dub? It is the same for Takuya with Burning Greymon and Koji with Kendo Garurumon. In doing research for this video, I found a chart of all the spirit evolutions, human spirit, beast spirit, and their fusion forms. And I gotta say, the Japanese names I like a lot better. Agunimon is actually Agnemon, Lobomon is Wolfmon, Kazumon is actually Kumamon is actually Shockmon, Kazumon is actually Pheramon, and Beetlemon is actually Blitzmon. Really, only Koichi's human spirit in the English dub, Loamon, is close to its Japanese name of, Loemon. It's just the English one, it's spelled Loweemon, whereas in the Japanese one, it's spelled Louwemon. As for the beast spirits, Burning Greymon is actually Vertramon. Kendo Garurumon is actually Garyumon. Korikakumon is actually Blizzarmon. Zephramon is actually Shutumon. Metal Kabuterimon is Bolgmon. Again, Koichi's beast spirit in the English dub, Velgamon, is closest to its Japanese name of Velgrumon, in which, Velgamon is Velgemon, and Velgrumon is Velgrmon. Yeah, they came up with some really stupid Digimon names for the English dub. The next thing is the power levels of our heroes seem to be all over the place. It doesn't help that they do the typical shonen anime thing of meets an enemy that absolutely crushes the hero, forcing the hero to retreat. Then the hero finds something or trains up to make themselves more powerful, and they go back and have a rematch battle in which the hero almost loses but uses their newfound power or item of power in the very last moment to win the fight type of thing. And that is the reason why I stopped watching anime and don't really like the anime, for instance, Bleach. The problem that Frontier has is that when the hero returns, the rematch is too easy. Through several episodes, Zoe and Ranamon were getting into fights where Zoe either couldn't quite defeat Ranamon, or Ranamon would lose control of her beast spirit and would fly away, accidentally of course for Ranamon. But in a later episode when our heroes were stuck inside of Zephyrothmon, Zoe has to fight Ranamon again. And Ranamon gets some good hits, and it takes Zoe but it takes 2 hits for Zoe to defeat Ranamon. Zoe is doing it as Zephyrmon, but still, she's able to easily defeat Ranamon, and does it rather quickly too. The thing is that I feel like in Digimon Adventure, the Digimon getting stronger felt warranted as they were having smaller battles in between fighting the show's major villains. But in Frontier, the only time our heroes are battling is when it's against the major villains. Otherwise, they're just walking to the next battle, and they're not really getting stronger in between these major battles. Next thing is that a lot of the character development feels forced. There's this moment in the anime in which our heroes get trapped inside of Mercurymon's beast form, Sakakumon, and they have to go through these kind of challenges in Sakakumon's spherical areas. It sounds weird, but just trust me. JP went into one first where he had to not only fight a mirror version of himself, but do that while these copies of Zoe and Tommy and Takuya are off to the side shouting at JP that no one likes him and that he has no friends and they don't actually like him, which of course they're not actually his real friend. And he has to fight a mirror version of himself, and he beats his mirror version and comes to the realization that he has friends that actually do like him. Yay, character development! The weird thing is that after that, JP goes into this next area where he's like, oh man, I'm really hungry. And he runs into a Cherrymon. JP easily beats the Cherrymon, even though the fight wasn't very warranted anyway. And he gets to exit Sakakumon because fighting, I guess? It doesn't make sense because my thought was that to get to be able to exit Sakakumon is that one has to learn a lesson. An example of that is what Zoe has to go through while inside of Sakakumon, which I kind of described already. She starts in a forest. This causes her to have a flashback to a school trip in which one of the other girls gets hurt and Zoe helps them. Zoe says the girls should catch up with the other girls that, they act like they're your stereotypical popular girls. But the one that Zoe helped decides to stay and hang out with Zoe and says that Zoe can eat with her and the popular girls. This lasts until the group is setting up camp, and the one girl tells Zoe to come eat with them, and the rest of the popular girls do not like that. The popular girls are only making fun of Zoe because she's been to Italy, because that's what you make fun of someone for getting to go to another country. Sure. Anyway, the person that Zoe thought was her friend says that they don't have enough pots of pants for her, and Zoe shouts that they're lying. Come back to reality, Zoe realizes that she has to deal with Ranamon. Zoe is able to defeat Ranamon very easily, and realizes through the flashback that she should have been nicer, but also to not let people step all over her. Having learned this lesson, she is allowed to exit Sakakumon. Tommy had to learn the lesson that sometimes he needs to not be so dependent on other people, which he does. On the flip side, Koji has to learn the opposite lesson as Tommy and has to learn to be less of a lone wolf. He, of course, doesn't, but Duskmon gets involved, and that's a whole nother thing. Being inside of Sukakumon forced a lot of these characters to have some sort of character development that didn't feel earned, especially when some of the characters had to learn a lesson to get out, and some just had to fight and win a fight that was way too easy for them to win. A perfect example is Duskmon, i.e. Koichi, where, you know, he's like, oh my gosh, why do I know Koji? And Koji is able to feel that there's a human, you know, form trapped inside of Duskmon, and eventually Koji is able to beat him, and, you know, through all of this, Koji realizes that it's his twin brother, and so there's some development there that, you know, they were separated they were both separated, and that, you know, Koji thought that his mom died and all this stuff. But the thing is that it's like they just allow Koichi to join them, and in one episode Koichi becomes a good guy and is able to break, you know, the power that Shirubimon had over him and awaken, you know, the shadow spirits, like true form or whatever, and become one of the good guys. And like, he does all this over one episode. This forced character development at its best. The next thing is that there are things that pop up in the world of the anime that don't make sense. There's one episode where our heroes are in a town that's going to have a Trailmon race, but they're also looking for someone. So our heroes go around to all the businesses and the people running them to ask for the person they're trying to look for. And as they are, one of them stop at a shop that's being run by a wild Gallantmon. Also, one of the Digimon you see in the crowd at the start of the Trailmon race is a Digimon. I'm pointing these out because, well, it shouldn't be possible for those two Digimon to exist without humans being present. Gallantmon is the biomerge of Guilmon and a human, and, you know, Digimon is a golden armor Digivolution, which requires a human to have, like, the golden armor Digi-Egg thing to make that Digivolution even happen. So it doesn't make sense that they're just out there, you know, hanging out in these forms. The last thing is that, and this is something that past Digimon anime do, but is worse in Frontier, that they spend too much animation time per episode with our heroes digivolving. I say this because there's times when, like, all 5 of them will digivolve, but when they show it, instead of showing all 5 doing it on screen at once, they show each of them one at a time and show the entire animation one at a time. And they don't need to do that, you know? We've seen this before. We've seen it many times at this point, and it's to the point where it loses the cool factor, if you ask me. They could, at the very least, speed up these animations, but they don't. So what are some good things about Digimon Frontier? Well, you do get returning Digimon from, like, Adventure and Tamers. Like, in one episode, some Gabumon show up. I think maybe it was one episode, could have been 2, I don't exactly remember. And I remember at one point seeing a glimpse of a Vmon in an episode. That's kind of all I can remember off the top of my head at this point, but you get my point. And yeah, that really is the only good thing that I can come up for Digimon Frontier, which makes it all I really have to say for Digimon Frontier. The next video will be on the Digimon Frontier Island of the Lost movie. And that's all I have to say, so if you're out of the conversation, leave a comment below. As always, thanks for listening, and goodbye.